very soon we will all see the building of the third temple in Jerusalem.
What if the single biggest obstacle to rebuilding the Jewish temple was removed this year? Not through politics, not through war, not through negotiation with Muslims who control the Temple Mount, through a cow. That sounds ridiculous until you understand Jewish law. The Book of Numbers describes a purification ceremony that uses the ashes of a red heifer, completely red, no blemishes, never used for work. The ashes, mixed with water, purify anyone who has touched death. Without this purification, priests cannot serve in the temple, and without priests, there is no temple service. For 2,000 years, this has been theoretical. No qualified red heifer existed. Rabbis studied the texts. Scholars debated the requirements. But nobody could actually perform the ritual. Then, in 2022, 5 red heifers were flown from Texas to Israel. They're now approaching age 3, the age when they can be sacrificed. Temple preparation groups say everything else is ready. But what does ready actually mean? This isn't speculation. This isn't symbolic. 5 actual red heifers are living in Israel right now, being prepared for a ceremony that hasn't been performed since before Jesus walked the earth. The Temple Institute, a group that has spent decades preparing for the Third Temple, confirms these animals meet the strict biblical requirements, at least for now. Religious leaders from around the world are watching, some with hope, some with concern, some with fear, because this isn't just about Jewish tradition. According to prophecy scholars, the red heifer is connected to end times events, the rebuilding of the temple, the return of ancient worship, even the appearance of the figure Christians call the Antichrist. But why does this animal matter so much? Why has the absence of one red cow stopped temple construction for 2 millennia? And why are these 5 from Texas being treated like they hold the key to biblical prophecy? To understand what's happening right now, we need to go back 3,000 years. In the book of Numbers, chapter 19, God gave Moses an unusual command. Find a red heifer that is completely red, not brown with red patches, not red with a few white hairs, entirely red. It must have no physical defects, no scars, no brands, no injuries, and it must never have been used for work, never pulled a plow, never carried a load, never even worn a yoke. Once found, the heifer would be taken outside the camp and burned completely. Hide, meat, blood, bones, everything reduced to ash. Those ashes would then be mixed with water to create what the Bible calls the water of purification. Anyone who touched a dead body became ceremonially unclean. This water made them clean again. Seems simple enough. But here's what most people miss. Without these ashes, the priests themselves cannot be purified. And without purified priests, a temple service cannot happen. No heifer means no temple. But there's a problem that's lasted 2,000 years. According to Jewish tradition, only 9 red heifers have ever qualified in all of human history. 9. From Moses to the destruction of the Second Temple in 70 AD. The 10th red heifer, according to ancient rabbis, will appear in the days of the Messiah. That's not just tradition, that's prophecy. After Rome destroyed the temple, the Jewish people scattered. Centuries passed. Then, millennia. Rabbis studied the requirements. Farmers searched their herds. As Jews returned to Israel in the 20th century, the search intensified. But the standards are brutally strict. A heifer might be born completely red, then grow 2 black hairs at 18 months. Disqualified. Another might be perfect, but a farmer used it to carry a saddle once. Disqualified. Year after year, decade after decade, no candidate emerged. The ashes from the 9th heifer were gone. The knowledge remained, but the ability to perform the ritual had vanished. Until September 2022, when something extraordinary happened. 5 red heifers were flown from a ranch in Texas to Israel. Not just any ranch. These heifers had been raised specifically for this purpose. Bred, monitored, and kept in conditions that ensured they met every biblical requirement. The moment they arrived, religious authorities took over. The heifers were placed in a protected area, their diet controlled, their activities restricted. Every few months, rabbis trained in the ancient laws examine them. They check for disqualifying marks. They verify no work has been performed. They document every detail. As of 2025, these heifers are approaching 3 years old. That's the minimum age according to Jewish law. Some sources say they must be at least 3. Others say between 3 and 4. Either way, the window is opening. If even one remains qualified when it reaches the proper age, the ceremony can proceed. For the first time in 2,000 years, the ashes of a red heifer could be prepared according to the exact biblical method. The 10th red heifer. The one connected to the Messianic age. But having the heifer is only the first step. What else needs to be ready? The Temple Institute in Jerusalem has been working since 1987. Nearly 40 years of preparation for a temple that doesn't exist yet. Walk into their facility and you'll see the future on display. A golden menorah, crafted to biblical specifications, worth over $3 million. It's not a replica for show. It's the actual menorah intended for use in the third temple. The table of showbread sits ready. Golden vessels for sacrifices have been created. Priestly garments have been woven using the ancient technique of combining linen in specific ways. Silver trumpets have been forged. The crown for the high priest has been designed. Even the stones for the breastplate have been acquired. 12 specific gemstones, each representing a tribe of Israel. But it goes deeper than objects. Men from the tribe of Levi have been trained in temple procedures. They've studied the ancient texts, practiced the rituals, learned the songs and prayers their ancestors performed 2,000 years ago. Architects have drawn complete blueprints for the temple structure. Engineers have calculated measurements. Before we continue, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss updates as this unfolds. This isn't happening in secret. The preparations are documented and public. In the book of Ezekiel, the prophet describes a vision of a future temple in extraordinary detail. Measurements, rooms, gates, altars. Some scholars believe this is the third temple, a structure that will stand in the final days before the Messiah comes. The priests are trained. The items are made. The plans are drawn. Everything is ready. But one question remains. When? Jesus himself spoke about a future temple. In Matthew chapter 24, he warned his disciples about the end times. He mentioned the abomination of desolation, a phrase from the prophet Daniel, standing in the holy place. The holy place. Not a symbolic place, not a spiritual concept, an actual physical location. For that prophecy to be fulfilled, there must be a temple standing in Jerusalem, which means it must be rebuilt. Look at the timeline. In 1948, Israel became a nation again after 2,000 years, something most historians thought impossible. In 1967, Jerusalem came back under Jewish control during the Six-Day War, the foundation where the temple once stood, accessible again. In 2022, 5 red heifers arrived, the final requirement for purification. Now, in 2025, those heifers are reaching maturity. Each milestone seemed impossible until it happened. Most of the world isn't paying attention. News channels aren't covering it. Politicians aren't discussing it. But those who study prophecy are watching closely. They see a pattern, a sequence of events falling into place. But what exactly happens next? The process is more specific than most realize. Right now, the heifers are under constant observation. Rabbis visit regularly to inspect them. They're looking for any change that would disqualify the animal. A spot of different colored hair, a blemish on the skin, any sign the heifer was used for work. The examination is thorough. One group of rabbis inspects. Then, another group verifies. Everything is documented with photographs and written records. Because once a heifer is declared qualified, the process moves quickly. The location has already been chosen. According to Jewish law, the ceremony must happen outside the camp. In ancient times, that meant outside Jerusalem. Today, that means the Mount of Olives, directly across from the Temple Mount. An altar has been constructed there. Cedar wood, hyssop, and scarlet thread have been prepared. These are mixed with the burning heifer, according to Numbers 19. Priests descended from Aaron have been identified and trained. They've gone through purification rituals using methods that don't require the red heifer ashes. It's a complex workaround, but religious scholars determined it's acceptable for this specific ceremony. Here's what approval actually means. It doesn't mean the heifer has been sacrificed yet. It means rabbinical authorities have examined the animal and confirmed it meets every biblical requirement. That declaration is the green light. Once given, the ceremony can be scheduled. Sources close to the Temple Institute suggest this could happen within months. But there's tension. The Muslim world watches nervously. The Dome of the Rock sits where the temple once stood. Any move toward rebuilding raises fears of conflict. Israeli politicians remain cautious. Some religious Jews oppose rushing the process. They believe only the Messiah himself should rebuild the temple. Yet preparations continue, quietly but deliberately. For Jewish people worldwide, the message is clear. The time of restoration is approaching. But for Christians watching, this means something even deeper. The book of Hebrews addresses the red heifer directly. Chapter 9, verses 13 and 14. If the blood of bulls and goats, and the ashes of a heifer sprinkling the unclean, makes the flesh ceremonially clean, how much more shall the blood of Christ purge your conscience from dead works to serve the living God? The writer is making a comparison. The red heifer cleansed the outside. It made someone ceremonially acceptable according to the law. But Jesus cleanses the inside, the heart, the conscience, the soul. While the red heifer had to be without blemish on the outside, Jesus was without sin on the inside. The heifer was completely red, the color of blood and sacrifice. Jesus shed his actual blood. The heifer's ashes were mixed with water for purification. Jesus offers living water that purifies forever. So for Christians, these red heifers carry dual meaning. Yes, they're a prophetic sign. They indicate we're moving closer to the events Jesus described. The temple will be rebuilt. End times prophecy will unfold. The return of Christ draws nearer. But they're also a reminder, a picture of something greater that already happened. The perfect sacrifice has already been offered. The complete purification has already been made available. Not through animal ashes, but through the Lamb of God. We live in a time where God's plan is moving forward on multiple levels. Ancient prophecies awakening, modern events aligning, spiritual truths being demonstrated in physical form. The question isn't just about when the temple gets rebuilt. So what does this all mean for us right now? The heifers are being watched. The priests are standing by. The altar is built. The timeline is converging. But there's something most prophecy watchers aren't discussing yet. Something that happens after the temple is rebuilt. Daniel's prophecy doesn't just mention the holy place. It mentions what stops. Daily sacrifices that suddenly end. An abomination that makes the place desolate. That sequence requires the sacrifices to start first, which means the temple must be functioning, which means we're not just watching preparation anymore. We're watching the ignition sequence. In the next few months, one of three things happens with these heifers, and only one of those outcomes changes the prophetic timeline forever. Stay with us for updates as this develops. The countdown has already begun.